in the most depressing place imaginable. No, we are actually exceedingly happy and calm because we are surrounded by this what I'm going to call sanatorium yellow.
Sanatorium. What's sanatorium?
It's a mental hospital.
Perfect.
The sanitarium is a mental hospital.
That's exactly where all of you startup founders will be.
So it used to be a thing that like yellow is supposed to be a common color. So a lot of the walls in old mental institutions were painted yellow to keep the residents calm.
Well, sharing a lot of my existence.
Well, I mean, to exist inside the university system. No, I'm just kidding. Super happy we're back in person. This is 3 weeks in a row that we are in person, but we're in a different position, and we're actually, are we standing on different sides? No, we're the same as we were before. Okay,
that is weird.
But we always have the same like left right thing here.
Do you like to walk on a certain side next to someone?
No. Do you?
I think naturally I do, but I wouldn't be able to say this is the exact side. But sometimes I do feel uncomfortable being on one side.
It's using the wrong. Let me switch mics. They can hear us. It just was shit audio. Sorry for the shit audio.
Where are we?
Where are we now? Well, judging yellow walls with the sanitarium. Sorry, that was my bad. We're here for our live weekly office hours. Ask us anything startup related that you got on your mind, from idea, fundraising to product market fit, traction, all that shit. We're here for you. We've got 3 questions that were submitted in advance, and we're super happy to, or actually 4 questions. Sorry, 4 questions that were submitted in advance. Super happy to be going through those with everyone, all y'all. We do prioritize the questions that come in live. So if you've got a live question, drop it into the chat on LinkedIn, YouTube. You know the drill. And if you want a little bit more breathing room, or you want to submit a question in advance, maybe you're listening to this on the Traction on podcast feed, then go to jdm.bio, click the calendar button, little form there, fill it out, ask your question, as some of y'all did. So let's just do it. Let's just dive right on in.
Let's dolphin on in.
Let's dolphin right into this this thing here. So actually, we got another one.
Awesome.
Okay. Let me see. Let me find this. All right. Well, I'm going to find this a second. Why don't you vamp for a second here?
So quick intermission here.
That's exactly well, I got lost.
No, thank you all for pre-submitting the questions. We, I think, got more questions than we usually do, which is awesome. So we'll be sure to tackle those as we go. Again, feel free to use the chat. This weekly reality check is a space for you to come with your burning questions, where we're ultimately going to give you that feedback that we hope will make that click forward. Our goal is to help also give you some frameworks and mindsets to think about it. If you're interested in learning more about some of the work that we do and how we support founders, don't hesitate to DM us. We have the Traction Lab Venture School. We have an upcoming investment readiness engine. So if you're looking to raise capital, we'd love to have conversations with you around that. But one of the key things that we aim to bring is a lot of rigor to building your startup, and really trying to tie this around building evidence-based startups. So you're going to hear us talk about building on validation versus vibes, and a lot of that just comes down to data and decision making, and how do you actually proportion your effort to the evidence that you ultimately have. And so we think about gathering evidence as this system of, one, acquiring that market evidence, but then really that it's all based on the stage. And so some of the 4 fundamental stages that you often hear about, we use this thing called the validation roadmap. But a way you might envision that is, the first thing you need to be able to demonstrate to an investor is founder market fit. So why the timing in the market? What evidence do you have that you should be the person solving this particular problem, or why this team in solving the problem? Then we have customer problem fit. So really diving into what evidence do you have around the urgency and severity related to that particular pain point. And that's all obviously contextualized on who your customer is. So when you think about that early adopter pyramid, we're targeting that top part of that pyramid, which is 16% of the market. And how we segment that is by those 2 elements of something that's both severe, but equally as important is urgency. And that's one of the big common pitfalls we see a lot of founders go down the path is they find a problem that has a lot of severity. They when they're talking to their customers, it's like, wow, this is a huge pain point. But then when it comes to push comes to shove, that's not a priority for them right now. So we'd say it's like number 10 on their list. And so they're not really a motivated buyer to get a solution currently. Then you have problem solution fit, which is where you actually are tying that right pain point, so that urgent, severe pain point that you've identified, you actually have the right solution that will solve it and ultimately create the value that your customer is looking for, and that there's a demonstrated willingness to pay in that process. And then lastly, you get into really this kind of business model fit. So can you get that engine going and really thinking about the unit economics work? Can we take this thing that is hopefully predictable, then becomes repeatable, and then now ultimately scalable going forward? So that's really the way we'd look at it. And so when we are really like diving into these questions, what we want you to really recognize is it's much easier for us to like evaluate the start because we don't have the bias of being in it and building it. And so we're trying to teach you in the process of bringing that pattern recognition to say, here's common mistakes that founders make, and how can you bring that rigor to your own startup, and kind of giving yourself that space to say the startup isn't you take that step back and then be able to look at it in a different way. Is that enough?
Yes, thank you. Because I had like marked like where we were, and then I got confused because I didn't recognize the question that was before it. And so I'm like, did we get two? It turns out there were two submitted just in the last hour.
Ooh, thank you.
So
there we go.
Two more, and so I just got lost in there. So we actually have 5 questions. I don't think we're going to get through them all, but we're gonna do our damnedest to get through them. And so let's do it. All right. So this first one here is a health tech, med tech company for residency program managers with residents working in 2 or more locations. They're at the unpaid pilot stage, and here is the cue. We're launching a pilot in our first program in July, unpaid, and we're targeting 5 total in 2026. Our users should see results fairly quickly and have a good idea if the product is right for them within a few weeks. How long should the original unpaid pilot last, and what point should new prospects be paying? Considering we have a very close relationship with our initial pilot program, should they get extra privileges, discounts, or early adopter benefits? Okay, I definitely have a lot to say here. I'm sure you
take it.
Okay, cool. So first things first, there were a few questions in here, and so thank you for asking. This is kind of nice and layered. I like it. So the middle question of like, how long should the original remain unpaid, and then when should the new ones start paying? So I'm gonna take that second part first. When should the new ones start paying? As soon as they will write a check. So the only reason to do unpaid pilots, in my opinion, is twofold. And these are common in healthcare. One is we have an actual feasibility thing. Is this literally possible? Can we do this? And so we need to partner with some early organizations. We're going to work together and see. And oftentimes those are companies that won't even eventually convert, but we just need to make sure shit works. And so like that's a thing. The other reason it's kind of related to that is that you might have insufficient social proof at this stage for that purchase. So they might be more used to buying really more well-established companies, and nobody wants to be the first customer. And it's hard to kind of fudge that in the early days, and they want to see that social proof, the logos or whatever from the other companies. And you don't have that yet. And so you do some unpaid pilots to sort of prove things out. But absent those and maybe a few other like tight little edge cases, you always want to charge. And so therefore, in this case, like as soon as you can get those other ones to actually pay money, then do it. Because what we're doing by not doing that is kicking the can down the road to figure out if they ever will pay money, which is a question I'd like to know the answer to. And I think you probably would as well. So that's kind of that. And so then I kind of want to like thread that into the first question of like, how long should the original unpilot last? And there's 2 ways to think about that. So I'll let you take our usual way of answering that, because I know you want to expand on that. But the thread here is, what do we need from those unpaid pilots, if anything, in order to close paid pilots, other ones? And that's how I would think about that. So if we're going to go back to my other 2 cases, if we're saying that they needed the social proof from this, right? Then it's as soon as we get the results back that show that this thing is working, and they're like, oh, and then we're like, okay, awesome. Now we can go and slap their logo on, our landing page, on our deck, or even just, in our sales pitch, in our sales deck, and then be good. If it's a feasibility thing and they're looking for some specific metrics, basically the same thing, just sans the logo. But so what is the proof that we actually need from those unpaid pilots in order to secure paid pilots? And if the answer is A, I don't know, or B, nothing, then the answer is now. Get payment now, because we don't have any reason to be waiting other than maybe founder insecurity, which is, again, super common. So I'm answering kind of like the special side of that, but then why don't you?
Yeah, so I think the big thing that we often talk about is we didn't front load that conversation. So even if you're deciding to go down the path of an unpaid pilot, we shouldn't hop into it without defining what success looks like. And so part of that is what Josh is hitting on, is what is the outcome that they're looking to achieve, or at least to make this decision. So we'd say is what is the value metric that they want to see? Is it increased productivity? Is it decreased, elements of getting things wrong, whatever that might be? And so what is that proof point? And so in those conversations, we're actually able to identify what that core value proposition is. And so from a experiment lens, we actually see if the thing we're trying to target and sell actually lands with them, versus oh yeah, I get a free thing, I might as well test it out. There's not, outside of me spending some time and effort on it, which is some form of validation, but not as strong as someone's willingness to pay. And so front loading that conversation, one, we can identify what is that value creation that's going to convert the sale, and then how much time do you need in order to do that, right? So if you're hey, we're going to decrease your expenditures and it's going to take 6 months to do it, well then you can't say let's do it in 90 days, and then you're not going to be able to hit the metric in order to do that. And so you kind of have to define some of that out there going forward. And then obviously, as part of that initial discussion, is how much are they then willing to pay upon you actually delivering that particular value. And so we'd speak about that quantifiable impact that you're creating. They have to see the return on investment for that. And so I think front loading those conversations, but since you've kind of already gone down that path, I think, going back and having even the conversation of hey, we've launched into this, we do want to put some parameters around what that looks like, I think would be to your benefit. And then I think, in answering this last question, so considering we have a very close relationship with our initial pilot program, should they get extra privileges, discounts, and early adopter benefits? I would have been more open to saying yes if they were paid at the beginning, versus it being we're kind of using that as a way to okay, let's see if we can offer this benefit. And one of the frameworks we use is, we call it the audit source analysis of your ultimately where this customer is coming from. And so this sounds like what we call as an affiliated lead or customer, right? So it's someone close to you, and so they're partly potentially doing this just because of social currency, right? Is if they say no, it potentially impacts your friendship or those things of that nature. And so when we start to actually gather stronger evidence is when we get these cold leads that convert to these pilots going forward. So we call this we have a matrix called the strength of evidence matrix that you can use to start to evaluate the strength of that overall evidence. But I'll turn it over to you if you have any last thoughts related to kind of this example. But as you're kind of thinking through, I think the biggest thing is, the more we can have that conversation on the front end and not go too far down the path without kind of setting up what our parameters of success are. And the key elements of that are what is the value we aim to create? What is the time element for us to deliver that value, or at least to demonstrate leading indicators of that value creation? And then what's the mechanism to actually convert that into a paid pilot? And some of those things could be, say, in 3 months, we agree to pause the pilot and have a conversation about structuring this as paid going forward, right? And this is what that potential payment would look like.
So I just decided to take the opportunity to throw this on the screen, since we have the benefit of being visual here. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, if you're listening to the replay in the podcast feed, then use your imaginations. But essentially, we this source spectrum from affiliated to cold is one of two evidence, or one of two axes we use when we evaluate the strength of evidence for any data that comes back from the market for any of our portfolio companies. And the other one is what we we need a better term for this, but it's basically the strength of evidence on what we call the ladder of evidence. So it's what kind of traction signal it is. So it could be like a low signal interview versus like high signals, revenue retention, referral, those kinds of things, and everything in between. And pilots are, kind of a little bit halfway in there, lower half if it's unpaid, upper half if it's paid, but like right in there in the middle in terms of those signals. So if you think about that as on the y-axis, and then on the x-axis we have whether it's affiliated to warm to cold, then we essentially end up with this 2x2 where what we're really trying to strive for is we seek to increase the strength of our evidence, increase our conviction in a startup, is we want them to be a more high signal piece of evidence like revenue, and we want it to be more cold because both of those two things are indicating changes in behavior that are not biased by all of the other things that come before it. They have more skin in the game and they have less reason to put skin in the game, and so then it must be about the value that we're delivering. So just kind of wanted to share, this is one of our Traction Lab frameworks that we use, the strength of evidence matrix. If you guys are curious about this and you want to know more, let us know. We can certainly do a post on this, and then give you guys the template and framework that we use for actually evaluating those. Just kind of wanted to provide that as a as a thing. Yeah, cool. I think the only other real thing that I'm just going back to our question here. I completely agree with you. I'm kind of a no to giving them extra privileges, benefits, and discounts because we don't have a reason to.
It seems like we're kind of
we're hedging.
Well, part of it is I think we're tying this to someone who's close to us, and we're we want to make sure we can do this right. We want to do right by them because it's almost coming like you're doing them a favor because they're willing to do this unpaid pilot, and then now you're asking them to pay. And so it's how do I then minimize that investment that they're making? And so I would say again, if it was paid on the front end, you might give some of those benefits. But if you're now doing unpaid, you're delivering the value. There's already demonstrated okay, there's good return on investment based on what you're getting out of this. I don't see the need to go down the path. Sorry, I hopped in. So.
No, that's exactly what I'm saying. It's it sounds like hedging. We weren't charging, we did all this work for free, and now we want to get them to pay, so we're going to do even more benefit for them to try to get them to pay, and it doesn't sit well with me. Whereas if in advance we were okay, we have this small group of people that we want to get into an early pilot program, they're going to be testing some out, they're doing us a favor as well as us doing them a favor, and so based on that we want to give them some additional benefits from doing that. I don't think anything wrong with that. In fact, we did the same thing with TLVS. And so in the Traction Lab Venture School, we launched our founding cohort, and we said, hey, this is all of our tools and frameworks that we use all the time in others, in other situations. And so we just want to apply this in this format of this, online community plus, course plus live events. So because that delivery mechanism was different, you guys are kind of the guinea pigs, and so we're going to give you a little bit more access. We're going to give you a little bit more of those benefits. And that was because we recognize that we are also getting some value out of them. So lower price and more access. But that was known in advance, and we said that this is what we're doing in order to support that founding cohort. But now it would have been weird if we did all that for free and then say, pretty please play us, we'll even give you a discount. It just starts to sound like we're hedging at that time. If there's a particular reason why you want to do well by these people that is that's behind the scenes here, let us know. Either, it sounds like we know each other. I think I know who you are. But send a DM, send an email, or drop a comment if you're here live, and we're happy to take that in more detail. But cool. We actually spent an awful long time on that question. That was a super fun one.
Yeah.
It was a good one. Thank you so much for the live questions. We love it. Sorry for the lovely pre-submitted questions. I was advancing ahead to what I was about to say, which was we prioritize the live questions. So if you've got something you want to say, even if it's just your opinion, you've been listening in. We love what you guys have to say. You guys often provide some really valuable insights. Feel free to drop your insights in there. We'll share them right on screen when you do. But let's take our next question here. We have time for maybe for a couple more, I think.
Yeah.
So this one here Hardware is a deep tech hardware play for parks and rec departments and private waste management companies. I think I know who they are. They're in the unpaid pilot stage. And it says, the challenge I'm currently facing is we have a small number of sensors out in the field, but it's not enough data to contribute to a paid pilot. We have permission to expand our unpaid pilot. To extend our unpaid pilot, we need more money to expand. Also, I met with a private waste management company who showed interest in the product, but did not like the idea of doing the paid pilot. Should I go out and raise money to fund these pilots, or just one pilot, maybe take a different approach? Thanks. Private waste management company was enthusiastic about the idea and the fact that we can detect fires because fires do occur. I hadn't thought about that, but the phrase dumpster fire must come from somewhere. So I guess
For sure, especially now with all the batteries that are being
clipping again on the audio. What the hell, dude?
Yeah, it's been a while. So.
What?
It has been the whole time.
Here, why don't we set these down on the table? Maybe roll distance on the thing. I don't know what's going on with that. I probably should have started the recording on the mics themselves. That way I could just, import the audio and replace the audio, but I did not. Okay, so there's a lot here too. This one's super, super rich. I'll let you go first. You pick one and then I'll pull a different thread.
Okay, so the thing that stood out to me most, because we just kind of hit on all the unpaid pilots. Now I want to dissect this sentence here. So where was it?
2 lines down.
This one.
I know where you're going.
Okay, so yeah, it's right here. So also, I met with a private waste management company who showed interest in the product, but did not like the idea of doing the paid pilot. So I guess the question I would ask if we were sitting down, which we are, is, how are you actually measuring and saying they're interested in the product when they're not demonstrating a willingness to pay for the paid pilot, right? And so
they're not that interested,
right? And so there's a spectrum there, right? And so we the terms we often bring in is the say-do gap, right? And so just in this one sentence, they said they're interested, but then they didn't actually take action related to it when you ask them to do so. And so they are investing some resources, that being, okay, I'm interested in doing an expanded unpaid pilot. So they're investing some time and effort in that process, which we definitely recognize. But in the long term of our business, if they're not seeing an immediate value of what that means to them, they're kind of feeling like their investment is, we're going to give you feedback related to your overall product. And so I think one of the simple shifts in maybe thinking, I'm dissecting language here, so I apologize for that. But I think it's really key distinction in how we think about our venture, right? Is we said they showed interest in the product, but not, what I didn't hear was they saw the value in what they could get out of the product, right? And so there's a difference between, oh, that's a really interesting product. They're kind of maybe extrapolating how their life could be better versus oh, I see how my life can be better. And so therefore I'm willing to pay because I'm getting some sort of benefit out of it. The return on investment is clear versus it seems like it's a little bit of a murky water. And so going down this path of raising funds to do an unpaid pilot, I think seems a little risky. It doesn't seem like the right bet versus, is there a subset of maybe these waste management groups that are willing to take you on as a paid pilot, and what is their severity and urgency related to that particular problem? So I just wanted to dissect that a little bit. So if we're pitching to say an investor saying they showed interest, but they weren't willing for a paid pilot, those don't really go well. And then I think one of the key elements is then to start translating from here's just the solution we've created to here's the value we aim to create. And maybe that might be the shift in mindset of not asking just to try the product out, but to actually say, hey, you're going to get this quantifiable impact out of it. Your life is going to be better because of X. And so therefore, maybe there's willingness to actually pay for that pilot. So I'll pass it over to you and see if there's any additional thoughts.
Well, I just wanted to sort of share another one of our little Traction Lab frameworks called
Ooh, you're just giving them all away.
I was giving them away for free. No need to join TLPS. We got it right here for you. No, this is one of about 30 frameworks that we use, but it's just a toolbox. The toolbox is free, but it's knowing when to pull the tools out and how to use them.
What's your favorite tool?
My favorite tool?
I was thinking
you are. Okay. So the 4 asks is so we have this idea of the stage.
You see 4 asks?
The 4 asks. We need 2 of them right here. The 4 asks are 4 different things that you can ask for, and if we've talked about this on the podcasts. I think probably more than once, probably many times. We have an article that we've written on our traction thinking Substacks. You can check all those out. So nothing new and surprising here. I just happen to have this image from TLVS that we created a while back and just happened to be talking about yesterday. And so I wanted to share it. But these are 4 different things you can ask for to try to close that say-do gap. You can ask for time, you can ask for effort, you can ask for access, or you can ask for money. The TEAM framework, TEAM, it's just one of our little tools. And so you can always think about, like, if we want to test whether interest is intent, and that's really what we're after. Interest doesn't interest me. Intent is what interests me. And so if we want to cross that interest intent or that say-do gap, then we can ask for something. And these are the 4 things that we can ask for. So just wanted to share that. And then let's see. Yep, there we go. Okay. All right. That's that. I actually don't know how the graphics really worked there because it's not giving me.
It did the background. So that's
yeah, but it's like, unlike with the screen share, it didn't give me the ability to like hide it. It wasn't listed anywhere, so I don't know where that is. Okay, but I got around it. I worked around it. We did. All right, so that's interest. The interest part of that kind of stood out for me. But what I'm hearing, if I can read between the lines here, is that fundraising probably isn't going to go well. And the reason that I'm saying that is because it seems like pretty consistent feedback from customers that you're not creating sufficient value to warrant writing a check. You're not solving a big enough problem yet to warrant writing a check. And that's really where I'd want to focus, is what is the gap between what you're doing now and what they will eventually pay for. And you said something at the beginning, we have a small number of sensors out in the field, but it's not enough data to contribute to a paid pilot. So I would like to know what that gap is. Mm-hmm. What do we actually need to close in order for it to be paid? And then can we do a letter of intent on that? Can we close that gap a bit to get a signal that if we were to have more sensors or sensors collecting more data or whatever the case is, that we were able to be something that they pay money for? You know, putting one sensor on one can, and I get why they're not going to pay for that. It's not even worth going through probably like the procurement process for that, you know. But what is that gap, and can we get some, again, that say-do evidence around that gap? And that's kind of all I have to say about that.
Sweet deal.
Cool.
I was just going to say, feel free to throw those live questions in the chat. Thanks everyone for pre-submitting. We have one pre-submitted question left to tackle, but if you have a live hot one, we'd love to see it thrown in the chat. Also, just feel free to throw what you're building. We'd love to see who's out there and what you're currently working on. So.
Are you asking the founders out there to put in their shameless plugs?
Yeah. Just throw those links in there. Throw your deck if you want feedback. I don't know, just something.
Oh, actually, that's the thing. Hey, do you guys want us to roast your decks? We've been talking for a little bit about the possibility of maybe doing some live reaction, like live pitch deck teardowns, where just from our perspective, if you want to just see how we react when we read your deck, you're not going to come on and pitch it, but when you go to apply to pitch to a fund, or you're emailing somebody your deck, how is that landing? Throw it to us and we will tell you the unvarnished truth live on air with the screen share, how we are interpreting your deck. So if we've done it on social media before, if you want us to do it as part of office hours, let us know, hit us up. Obviously we have finite slots. We'll probably only do, one at a time.
One a year.
1 year. Well, definitely no more than one a week. Probably not every week. And plus we got something special planned for office hours next week.
Ooh.
But just check out that announcement when it's coming. Okay. Last one is a deep tech hardware play for computational directors at Series A biotechs that have raised 20 million or more. They're at the idea pre-product stage. That was a lot of words for pre-product, my dude. All right, we are trying to balance who we can reach with who can pay for products. I love it. If you have chosen a new higher value target persona, are there ways to improve getting conversations with them during discovery? We can talk to users, but to get to decision makers, people want a brochure of the product. Okay, so this is the distinction between sales and customer discovery. Is that if you're getting into these positions where people are wanting brochures or leave behinds, it means one of two things. One, they're expecting a polished, finished product thing, and they are looking for information from that stage of company, and that's not you, so you can't really do that. If we felt high conviction around some of those things, then we could do that. This is where we put in fake door tests, all the time. We put in landing page tests, so we can create assets if we need them for those situations. But that feels like a mismatch here more than that. I don't have a theory of how that brochure is going to close the deal, so that's up to you. The next thing that it could be, which is probably more likely, is that they're blowing you off. So to get to decision makers, people want a brochure of the product. What you like, if we go back to that team framework, this is asking for access, and they're not willing to burn their social capital yet. And they're asking you for more so they can feel better about spending that social capital, which means that you're not there yet. And that could also be them blowing me off, like, oh yeah, send me the thing and I'll pass it up the food chain. Like, my gut says they're blowing you off. But aside from that, it could be that they see the interest in it. It's interesting to them. They love what you're working on. It's their field. It's kind of cool, but it's not worth their social capital. Pass it on to their boss. And we see that a lot. And so that's why the access component is there in the team framework, because it is going to tease out those kinds of things. And we really often see this with like B2E, like business to like enterprise sales, where they'll be like, oh, in order to sell, or in order for us to buy this, we have to get this sign off from compliance. There's like this whole rigmarole that, you have to jump through for that. And then you say, oh, okay, well, can you introduce me to people at compliance? They go, well, it's because that was just a way for them to get out of it. And it's not that they were being dishonest, but it was a more of a polite.
You called their bluff.
You called their bluff. It was a polite brush off. You called their bluff, and now
But it's like, that's good learning, because oftentimes people are like, oh, okay, I'm going to go start to build the thing, right, and then start to navigate that sales process, when actually, like, you've learned something really valuable and understand like the ecosystem of how that decision's made and who the potential economic buyer is. And so, is that the best path to kind of go in through this person? If they are the end user and they're not willing to do that, then they're probably not going to be a champion going forward, right? And so understanding what that landscape looks like. So.
Yeah, totally. And like, it's all data, it's all learning, and we're learning it super cheaply and efficiently because it's just a fucking phone call, right? Like, right. So we're learning that it's a great like cost of data that we can get there. Even if it's not the answer we want, that quick no is actually going to serve us really well.
Yeah, I think one thing too is like recognizing in the discovery process, maybe there is a genuine element of like, they want to see what it is before they're like willing to go, make that connection. But it also is like, did we get sufficient data and understanding like what a past decision looked like? So asking the question of, what is the last kind of technology you procured, and like, how did that process go, and understanding like that whole framework of like what do they actually need in order to bring this to our higher ups to make that decision? Did they need a brochure, or did they just send them the link? Like, and what was part of that ask? Is it to have a meeting? Is it to say, hey, I want some allocation of budget? All of those types of things. And so as we look at going to those discussions, it's less of it being about the like sales of like, can I get to the next person to then like pitch them, because like we're not ready to even sell them anything. We still want to understand the problem we're solving and the urgency and severity related to it. And so the more we can contextualize their past decision making and how they've gone through that process will help us move forward.
Totes my goats. Cool. And you are welcome, good sir. Thanks for the awesome question. I love it. Okay, let's see. I think that basically brings us to the end of time. Cameron and I have to run. Keep the questions coming. There are more. Sorry, we didn't get to them. We will get to them next week. But for the moment, that will bring us to the end of the time that we have here. If you're watching this live, then you can go up to the description and you'll find a link to submit a question in advance if you want to submit the question in advance. If you're listening to the replay, it's in the show notes. So thanks so much for that. Great to be in person again.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, always love the energy, and thank you everyone for those questions you submitted ahead of time. And then if you liked what you got from some of these frameworks, do check out the tlvs.link. That's our Traction Lab Venture School. We are going to be gearing up towards our second cohort, so would love to see if you want to plug into that. Additionally, if you have questions and are interested in that kind of pitch deck teardown, feel free to throw it in the comments here or send us a DM, and would love to engage you in that process. But again, thank you as always for being an entrepreneur and taking that risk, and we want to support you in that process. So thanks, JDM, for an awesome session, and signing off as we always do with a good old bye. Bye.